now. So, right, we've got some people here. Great. Okay, who else is here? We've got Butterfly. Hello from City of Angels. That's great. Hello. So yeah, let me know in the meantime whilst we're still waiting for people to tune in. Let me know where you are, where you are watching from. That's always super exciting for me to know. I just never cease to be amazed that we are able to do this. And so I'm in Spain, as you may or may not know. Great. We've got Eduardo from Florida. Excellent. So yeah, as I said, I'm in Spain, so it's 6:30 in the evening for me, but it's obviously nice and early for you guys and just starting your Sunday. Awesome. Great. So yes, thank you very much that you're choosing to start your Sunday with me here. That's really great. Really excited about that. And I've got slowly getting started, and hopefully we'll be having more people coming in as we're going on. So what I wanted to do in this session, first of all, as I promised, I'm going to do a bit of a summary of the sort of main takeaway points from part one of the series. Part one, or you are new here and you are just waiting for part two to start tomorrow. I'm actually quite interested to know if you've actually were able to watch part one or not. If not, then yes, I am doing the summary, because even, to be honest, even if you did watch part one, I think it's still going to be well, there you go, Eduardo. So I'm going to do the summary, because even if you did watch part one, I think it's just always good to review and have a summary of what was covered. So I think that will be useful anyway, whether you did or didn't watch it. Cheryl, hello, you're new as well. So yes, so okay, so you guys might find this interesting. So Emma says didn't watch part one, at least in its entirety. Okay, and Brad says that you saw part one. So, okay, great. So we've got a bit of a mixture. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a little summary, because I think that's important going into part two. Karen, hello. Karen says, yes, I thoroughly enjoyed part one. So hopefully you will enjoy part two also, Karen. I think it's useful because obviously we had, even if you did see it, we had a 5 weeks break in between. So of course it's always good to have a bit of a summary, I think. And then what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to briefly tell you about what you can expect from part two. And then I wanted to just talk a little bit about why we do need to hold on to the fact that when it comes to autoimmunity, we can do so much on our own. And this is the whole point of doing those events. I'm sure it's true for other people, but certainly true for me, that doing those events, getting all those experts to talk about what we can do and spreading this information is so important, because we are definitely not just destined to have this condition, and it's not, absolutely not true that there's nothing you can do. There's awful lot that you can do, and of course it's largely due to the fact that the epigenetic influence is so huge with autoimmunity. So I want to also tell you genetics and how that actually worked in my case, and I'll give you some tips on what you can do every day to things that are not complicated, but if you do them regularly, and that's the key word here, will be if you are consistent, you're going to have you're going to feel a massive impact on your health. Not complicated things that don't necessarily have to take a lot of time, but the key point here is that you do them consistently. And I would even go as far as say, give yourself 30 days and do a challenge, and even pick one or pick two of the sort of tips that I'm giving you, and honestly just do it for 30 days, and I can promise you, you will see a massive impact. So we'll get to that. So there's more people coming in. Alison from Essex, UK this time. Hello. Great. Okay, so just in case you are new here, and I know a few people are, and you may not know me, or may not know anything about me. In fact, why would you? Wouldn't necessarily if you knew, right? So I have studied natural medicine and also the human mind. I started in biochemistry and nutrition, but I quickly expanded to the world of psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, all of those sort of things, and classical things like psychoanalysis, hypnotherapy, mindfulness, NLP, and of course psychoneuroimmunology, which I'm quite keen on, and I'll be doing a session on that in this part 2 of the series. So yeah, we've still got more people coming. John said missed part 1, but yes, but you're in time for part 2, so that's great. So let's let me just I just started saying very quickly why I decided to do this conference, and I just wanted to stress one more time that autoimmunity is not only preventable, because it absolutely is preventable, but many people reverse autoimmune mechanisms in their body every single day. People all over the globe doing this as we speak all the time, and a lot of people do it purely through lifestyle and dietary modifications, and it can be done. And it is an absolute tragedy, and quite frankly a travesty, that as far as conventional medicine is concerned, think they can do about autoimmunity. It is complete and utter nonsense. Conventional medicine is about at least 10-15 years behind natural medicine and functional medicine in this respect. And it's not to say that conventional medicine doesn't have its place. It does have its place. I am not an extremist. I'm not against conventional medicine. If somebody has a broken limb, then they need to go and be seen by a conventional medical practitioner, clearly. But unfortunately, conventional medicine is really not very effective at all. In fact, it's very ineffective, and it's quite deficient in its approach when it comes to helping people with autoimmune conditions. So therefore, events like this can really help people, and you absolutely can watch it for free. And this is why we're doing this. So there's going to be thousands of people watching this, and a lot of people will then email me and say, this has opened my eyes, there's so much I can do. And so about for me, because autoimmunity is at epidemic proportions. In fact, there are researchers and medical professionals right now already considering working on the theory, let's say, and starting to prove the theory that actually all chronic conditions is autoimmune at its core, which is a very interesting concept. So if you think about that, then that is a lot of people, right? A lot of people. So, and we know that the list of autoimmune conditions is growing all the time. And I have people emailing me oftentimes, and they will say, oh my God, I hear that this is now an autoimmune condition. Is this true? And the chances are that if they read somewhere that whatever condition they have is autoimmune, it probably is. So luckily, what is actually, we are fortunate in that there is a lot of information, there is a lot of research. We know that there is a lot we can do. The strategies are tested, they work for a lot of people. Of course, you always have to find there's not really going to be a magic bullet for this. So in other words, you're going to have to do more than one thing to get better. And also, there's not going to be one perfect protocol for everybody. However, all that said, you can start with those protocols that are available, that have been tested by a lot of people, and they are working for a lot of people. And then you can fine-tune it to make sure that you benefiting fully from doing that protocol, because sometimes it requires that, but that's fine. but at least you've got some point of attachment with events like this, and you know where to start and what to look at in the first place, so that you can then expand from there. And if you need to work with somebody, then you can work with somebody, of course, and oftentimes you probably should. But at the same time, things like dietary and lifestyle modifications, nobody will actually, even if you pay a lot of money to work with a practitioner, or whether it's functional medicine or otherwise, they're still not going to do those things for you. So you still have to start somewhere and get your foundations right. And that's really, really important. So autoimmunity is preventable. There's a lot we can do. And unfortunately, currently, a lot of people are suffering completely needlessly. And a lot of lives are ruined as a result of this condition. A lot of people lose their quality of life. But if you're thinking it's not just the individual, whole families are affected, as it is with any chronic condition. So, but people, by having more information, by actually helping themselves more, they can have a massive impact, not just on themselves, they can have a massive impact on their family, their community, etc. So it's very, very important that we share this information, and as many people as possible can benefit from this. Autoimmune recovery is a massive subject, and this is the reason why this conference has been done in two parts, because quite honestly, yes, there is a lot of ground to cover, and I didn't want to be superficial. Of course, you need to cover the basics if people are new to it, and at some point there will be things that you probably have heard before, but then hopefully there will be loads of things that you haven't heard before, and loads of strategies that you didn't consider previously, and now it may be something that you want to look into, and it may be that you find that one thing that will propel you further in your recovery, which would be obviously amazing. And if that happens, then definitely let me know. I'd love to know. So a lot of material to cover. So part one was very much about identifying and dealing with root causes of autoimmunity. And then part two that we're doing starting tomorrow is about restoring immune tolerance. But when we're talking about rebalancing the immune function, because ultimately that's what it's all about, autoimmunity is about immune dysregulation. So ultimately, we want to rebalance the immune system so that it works properly again. Root cause of whatever it is, the triggers and the root cause, whatever is triggering you, that needs to be addressed. And that's going to be different for everybody. However, there are common themes, and there are common sort of key areas. Let's just say those key areas. And if you're stuck currently, then I encourage you to, just take notes, even listening to this, and go over those key areas and think, what am I missing? Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's something I didn't consider in this area or that area. So hopefully what I'm going to do in a minute is going to help with that. So of course, if you missed part one, then unfortunately the only way to now catch those interviews is to get lifetime access to those interviews. And that way you can just watch them whenever you want. So that's the all access pass. But of course the part two you can watch for free from tomorrow, starting tomorrow. And so the all access pass, if you get the whole lot, it does include 63 sessions overall, both video and audio, all the presentations, any presentations that were done, PDFs, all of that is there. And of course, $1,000 worth of bonuses as well. So there's a lot of learning material there, and it's a really, really good product. It's nicely set up in the just tune in for part two tomorrow and get the most that you can out of it. Watch as many sessions as you possibly can, and you still get a lot of information. And so, of course, I always welcome people who want to watch it for free, but clearly hundreds and hundreds of hours have gone into producing this event, as you can appreciate. Yeah, and it really has. And it's been sometimes, an interesting ride, because things don't always work the way you think they're going to work. So overall, the process has been enjoyable, but it took pretty much solid 3 months to put it all together, if not 4, probably more like 3.5 really. And so yeah, during which time, of course, I wasn't getting paid for any of this. So I always welcome people who want to support our mission and buy the All Access Pass, of course, because that means I can pay my bills and I can continue producing these events for you, right? But like I said, this is not something that is compulsory, and we welcome everybody. And if people can't afford it or don't want to buy it, then that's absolutely fine. And you can hopefully still get a lot of information out of it that way. So because, of course, I was talking about that this event's up big. And I just want to briefly tell you, because without those guys supporting this event, we would not have an event. So Organics is a supplement company. It's 100% committed to using the purest, non-GMO, USDA certified organic ingredients wherever and whenever possible. So wonderful supplement range, really, because of course supplements can be full of basically toxic things that we don't want to put in our bodies. So their mission is simple. It's supporting you in being the healthiest you can be, the healthiest possible. And so they conduct very extensive research to bring you supplements that you can trust and the results that you love, because they'll be hugely beneficial. The truth about cancer is basically an entity organization that aims to educate the world on all the solutions and choices available to prevent and beat cancer. And that includes a lot of those modalities, things that people can do, but they never know about it. People don't even hear about those things. So they really bring it to the spotlight and to the forefront. And if you know anybody affected by cancer, then absolutely point them in the direction of that resource, because it's incredible. And so the truth about cancer, they aim to eliminate the fear surrounding the disease and replace it with hope. Because again, when it comes to cancer, similarly to autoimmunity, interestingly, there's so much that people can do. And so they ultimately aim to eradicate the disease from the planet. That's their big mission. And Quicksilver Scientific is actually an industry leader in blood metals testing. And also they focus on development and production of liposomal delivery systems. And you may have heard of liposomal glutathione, liposomal various things that we know that actually tend to work a lot better than the traditional capsules or pills that we can take. So Quicksilver Scientific is actually dedicated to delivering like superior forms of those supplements in the form of liposomal. And they're dedicated to producing basically a whole range of nutraceutical products and that support human detoxification, and therefore optimizing health, of course, because we know how huge detoxification is. Whether it's autoimmunity or any other chronic illness, if we want to overcome it, we need to put a lot of emphasis on detoxification. So these are all the wonderful massively, because without them, as I said, we wouldn't have an event. So I promised the summary of part 1. So that was about identifying and addressing root causes of autoimmunity. So essentially, the bottom line is this: if we're going to be successful in reversing autoimmunity, which, as I said, a lot of people have managed to do that, a lot of people are continuing to do that, or at the very least, if you don't get completely rid of it, then you can do an awful lot to improve it, because it may not be possible for absolutely everybody to reverse it, particularly if there's a lot of organ damage, for instance, and if the disease is very, very sort of far gone, but you can still do an awful lot to improve your situation, your quality of life. But in order to be able to succeed at this, you absolutely must identify your root causes and deal with those root causes. And I will name some key areas where you need to put emphasis when you're trying to identify, obviously, what your root cause is, because potentially it is different for everybody. There could be one root cause, there could be many root causes. Usually it's more than one, but there's going to be that one thing that people it's sort of is that bucket that overflows. That's what happens. So autoimmunity does not develop overnight, as we know. It can take years. Sometimes it can take decades. And you're going to have all sorts of things piling on top of each other. There's going to be toxicity. There's going to be infections. There's going to be poor food choices, microbiome is filling up. Then that one thing will come along and it will push you over the edge. That's usually what's going to happen. And for one person, it's going to be an infection. For another person, it could. But it wasn't that the electromagnetic radiation caused the autoimmune condition. It was that last straw that broke the camel's back. So I've got Valerie here from Canada as well. I'm just keeping an eye on the comment box. So keep them coming. And you enjoy the first series, brilliant. So I'm hoping that you're gonna get a lot out of the second one as well. So I hope this makes sense, is that we really must go after the root causes, and it's not going to happen otherwise, because even if you take medication, even if you're just managing the disease, what happens is that if you don't remove the root cause that that basically created this problem in the first place, then potentially those autoimmune mechanisms are going to continue in the body and potentially triggering other autoimmune symptoms. And that is very often the case. More often than not, people will actually have more than one. Or I certainly know that indeed, I mean, exactly. It needs to be, as Timothy just pointed out, it needs to be, the lifestyle needs to change, the diet needs to change. So you're not going to be able to, if you want to recover, you're not going to be able to carry on doing what you've done so far, for one simple reason, that clearly what you've been doing so far hasn't really worked, because it got you to where you are today, which means being sick. So obviously something needs to change. It's obvious. And oftentimes when we approach it from a variety of different angles, that's when we're going to be most successful. Like I said, there is no magic bullet. I wish I could tell you there's this one thing you can do and you get rid of it, but I would be lying, and that's not true. But at the same time, you can absolutely adopt this, what we call a multifactorial approach and multifaceted approach. And when you do that, you have a massive chance of succeeding, absolutely massive. And so this is quite important, that to actually really stress that if you don't address your root cause, you're not addressing those medication because you have to, because your symptoms are so severe that you need to be managing in the meantime whilst you're figuring this all out with medication. It's absolutely the right thing to do. But if somebody just stops at taking medication, then there's no guarantee they're not going to develop another autoimmune condition. And in fact, oftentimes they will. So this is why it's so important. The root causes are crucial. And it's crucial to make yourself a little list on what you think you should be prioritizing. So one absolute key area here is obviously going to be gut function. There's a lot of talk about leaky gut, of course, intestinal hyperpermeability, and that's obviously a massive, one of the massive factors, as is dysbiosis. So of course the imbalances in microbiome can in itself contribute to autoimmunity. But when I'm talking about gut function, you also need to consider other things. So of course, healing the gut, fixing the microbiome, as in the dysbiosis that may be going on, which is present in so many people. More often than not, you will have that in somebody who is chronically ill, even if they don't have autoimmunity, you still see that. So those are really important, but also really looking at, which is sometimes overlooked, is the rest of the digestive system. So you need to make sure that your liver, your gallbladder, your stomach and your pancreas all are working really well. So in other words, you could have what you could be contributing, for example, in your case to autoimmunity, is that you're not digesting protein, for example, because your stomach acid is low, your stomach may be inflamed or something like that. And then you've got these huge particles of protein basically getting into the bloodstream because you've got leaky gut, and bang, that's going to be causing the reactivity of the immune function of the immune system. That's so common, right? So we not just, when we're talking gut function, I encourage you to really consider not just your microbiome and your leaky gut, or whether you have a leaky gut, which a lot of people do, but also your liver, gallbladder health, stomach and pancreas as well, because you need to be able to digest food properly. And people with chronic conditions, most of the time, they have an issue, that there's going to be an issue somewhere within the digestive system, because if they digested food perfectly, they probably wouldn't have that problem in the first place. So that's one big area to be looking at, and always working on improving. Always, the digestive system is really in some ways for us, with people who have experience with autoimmunity or who are currently trying to heal it, is probably our number one system to be looking at. So the next area, because I sort of categorize in different areas just to make it easy for you to wrap your brain around this. So the next area will be addressing all the dietary factors, anything that can contribute to causing inflammation, because of course it's chronic inflammation we're fighting here, so we're dealing with here. So grains and legumes, unfortunately, they're more toxic than they are nutritious. And so particularly, as we know, gluten, and every single person dealing with autoimmunity will tell you the same thing. I've not yet heard, I know so many practitioners, I've not had yet anybody who would say anything different, that gluten, at the very least, gluten has to go. People who get better results are those who eliminate grains and legumes, at least for a period of time, when they do the sort of elimination diet. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is, of course, sugar, highly inflammatory. We all know that. And we need to be looking at sugar coming from all sorts of sources, but not be too paranoid about sugars in vegetables, for example, because vegetables is just one thing that you don't want to be, unless you're allergic or sensitive to a particular vegetable, you don't want to be cutting that out, because that's where most of your nutrition will come from. But sugars in fruits, sugars in dried fruits, even things like that, never mind all the other stuff that is processed, right? Cereals and things like that. And then another aspect is genetically modified organisms. So we really want to be buying foods that are non-GMO. So really so much evidence. We had a very good interview with Jeffrey Smith on this in part 1. There's tons of evidence. So we're as much as possible, we want to stay away from that. Food sensitivities is another one that really has to be addressed. If you're going to go and do, one test, then I would probably say make sure that you're absolutely clear about any foods that you may be reactive to. Because even if it's a lower level of sensitivity, if you're eating this food and maybe not even know that you're reacting, because sensitivities can take 2-3 days to even show in terms of symptoms, then you'll be triggering this immune response time and time again, and therefore aggravating the body, and aggravating and certainly not preventing the healing. So the food sensitivity is very, very important that you establish that either through elimination diet or perhaps testing. I would consider testing for the more obscure things, because sometimes if it's something like, I don't know, garlic, maybe garlic is actually more common than people think, but you may not immediately realize that that's causing you a problem, right? Or some spice or something like that. So maybe some testing is prudent if that's the case. Nutritional insufficiencies and deficiencies is another one. I would say that most people with chronic condition of any kind will have some level of nutritional insufficiency, whether it's vitamin D, whether it's vitamin A, whether it's zinc, magnesium, because there are some common ones. And of course, we will be discussing that more actually in part 2 also. And then, of course, you need to consider drug-related nutrient depletion, because if you're taking medication, whether it's for pain or whether to manage your symptoms currently, most of those drugs will be depleting the vital nutrients that your body is needing so badly to heal. So all of that requires consideration. Then another big areas, and this is a big area, is chronic infections. That's it, chronic infections. So we've got just sort of between talking to you and checking what you guys saying in the box. And so basically loads of things can happen here, loads and loads. So we can have SIBO or SIFO, so small intestinal bacterial or fungal overgrowth, that could be present. Candida, of course, can be present. Loads of people have that. All sorts of parasites, because we all have parasites. If you think, oh, parasites, no, that can't be me. If you're alive and breathing, you have parasites, basically, unless you specifically have been dealing with them and on an ongoing basis, then you will have them. And of course, there are some positive ones, so we don't want to kill all of them, but I'm talking about the bad ones. And then viral infections, such as Epstein-Barr. So that's one example. So of course, we don't want any kind of dormant infections like that in the body, because that can really mess things up. Can cause chronic fatigue and all sorts of other things. And bacterial infections, of course, things like Klebsiella. You know, there's loads of those gram-negative bacteria that can cause a lot of havoc in the body, but they can be low level for a long, long time. And so you don't even know that that's there. That's the point. So when you get a chronic condition and you're really sick, it's very, very important to go and test yourself for all those infections, because if you have something like chronic Lyme or bacterial viral infection that is just causing damage underneath, you've got that perhaps low grade exposure to that, but the immune system is firing all the time, and you get the autoimmune symptoms as a result of that. So I would say when it comes to infections, we all have them. Most people with autoimmunity will have loads. I'm not even talking 1, 2, or 3. I'm talking more like 20, 30. That's not uncommon. Different co-infections of those different kinds that I mentioned. I'm serious. That's basically what it can be. And for a lot of people who are symptomatic, that's what you're going to see. Loads of infections. For example, rubbing the body with a solution like garlic or something like that they absolutely hate, they're going to start coming out through the skin. So they're not necessarily in the digestion. I'm talking honestly, that does happen, absolutely. Sometimes they're going to sit in lymph nodes, they can sit in your liver, they can sit in your muscles, they can sit in your brain tissue, in which case you probably have some neurological symptoms. And sometimes this is exactly what happens. People get diagnosed with something like MS, for example, and all that is a chronic Lyme disease, right? So this is well, exactly. Somebody says that, you know, you can have a TELS called autoimmune panel with 0 results. That's where I have a problem. Now, exactly the same. I did exactly the same. I had all sorts of blood tests, and actually nothing really showed, apart from a mild Helicobacter infection. But when I did the resonance diagnostics, I had 18 different co-infections. So that's a massive difference, because if you don't know what you're trying to treat, well, how are you going to do it? So the diagnostics in this case is very important. So like I said, just be aware that pathogens can sit in other parts of the body, not just the digestive tract. So if you do a comprehensive stool analysis, you still get limited information. So that's one big area. Another big area is toxicity and hormones. So we're talking pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, plastics. So obviously in everywhere you turn, we bombard it with this stuff. So just bit by bit, detoxifying your environment is very, very important, because going forward, that's going to benefit you massively. And of course, endotoxicity also, which can come from either an infection like we just discussed, because you could have a gut infection and that could be producing toxins. Like if you have fungal overgrowth in your gut, that will be producing toxins all the time that your immune system is trying to deal with, and therefore you have an exaggerated response. But it can also come from oral toxicity. So any sort of cavitations, root canals, things like that. Then we've got, of course, mold and mycotoxins. And then, of course, when you're talking about hormonal health, we need to massively put emphasis on sleep. And of course, electromagnetic radiation will also contribute to disrupting our hormones. So we need to be detoxifying our environment as much as possible. It's not possible to do it 100% if you want to live in the real world, but there's an awful lot you can do to actually lower your electromagnetic radiation exposure. So somebody's asking whether the bioresonance technology is also used to treat. Yes, it's also used to treat. That's how I got rid of my Lyme disease, my Epstein-Barr, my Helicobacter, and Candida, and whatever else I had, which was a lot of things. I can't remember the whole list now. So yes, it does actually. It's also used to treat, which is phenomenal, because for the same reason, this is it's basically because it's resonance. It's also absolutely, I'm telling you guys, it's the future of medicine. I absolutely swear by this. I'm just actually getting the kit to very, very sort of Star Trek-y type kit for my clinic, because it is just that amazing. And I've been using it over the years, but I am going to own it now. So very excited about that, because it's that good. So, what I'm saying here is, if you, for example, just use herbs, most of the time you will kill off some stuff that you have within your digestive tract. But again, if you have something in your lymph nodes or in your muscles or something like that, you may not get to that. And of course, there's biofilm issues. So pathogens they're not stupid. They're trying to survive. So therefore, they'll be doing their best to try and make sure you can't kill them. And the bioresonance is that. Actually, there is one more thing. There's ozone therapy also that can kill them dead very well. So, and most pathogens are not going to be able to be resistant to ozone therapy. So that's another one for you. But with just hormones and diet alone, even though you make a dent in it, it's very difficult to get rid of those things fully. That's my experience. And I've tried this over the years, various different things. So the next area, and that's the sort of last big area that you need to be aware that that requires your attention and focus, is emotional factors, or as I say, emotional toxicity. I talk about that a lot because people don't realize just how much of a factor that is. So things like poor self-worth, emotional trauma of any sort, values, beliefs, if they're not constructive and positive, they'll definitely get in the way of your healing. Toxic relationships, things like social isolation, really bad in terms of, people really get sick if they're socially isolated. That's definitely scientifically backed up now. And then, of course, the everyday stress. But that's actually, the everyday stress is a little bit, people think that that's the biggest one. Actually, that's probably the smallest one. It's all those little things that go on under the sort of level of conscious awareness that just filling your mind with all sorts of toxic emotions and feelings. And that's something that is a much bigger factor than people realize. And so I gave you those big areas, and you would say, well, what about genetics? Well, what about genetics? In the end, it's the least important factor, and I'll say why in just a moment. And also, it's one that we don't have a lot of influence on. What we have influence on is all the epigenetic factors, which I just talked about. So yes, there's a genetic element in autoimmunity, but really, that's not going to be the focus here. Is all the things that we can control and influence, and these are all the things that I've just listed. So that was my summary of part one. There's a lot of information there, as you can imagine. There were 33 sessions on all that stuff that I just talked about, but that just gives you a breakdown of the areas that you need to be paying attention to if you're currently having symptoms and struggling, because one of those will be your root cause, undoubtedly. So when it comes to part two, so this is why I separated the two, because I wanted to, we're working on identifying and dealing with root causes. And we have here our foundations within that, right? Because once we've got that, we know what it is, we know what triggers, brilliant, you know, you can remove that, you can start getting better. However, when the immune system has been dysregulated for a very long time, just removing gluten or dealing with an infection may not switch that response off, or it may not, it will take time for the immune system to come back into some sort of balance. And sometimes it can take a long time for that to happen. So what we now want to do, once we covered the basics and we know our root causes, we dealt with our root causes, now we want to be looking at some more advanced strategies to help our immune system come back into balance, okay? So that's really what I wanted to focus in part 2 of the event. Again, each day will be themed, and it will obviously, we're going to have a focus of the day. And so, but all of those pretty much will be revolving around, well, how do we now regenerate the tissues and organs? Because we've been sick for a long time. Yes, we know our root causes now, and we're trying to deal with those root causes. But there's going to be this regeneration phase that we need to go through. And of course, restoring the immune tolerance so that the immune system going forward is not overreacting or underreacting or whatever, and it's not giving us those symptoms. So day 1 of part 2, which is tomorrow, will be about restoring immune and organ function, just sort of like a broad, maybe more of an overview type day, whereby we're talking about brain tissue regeneration, the skin. We're also just talking about the immune system and what actually happens in autoimmunity, because I think a lot of people misunderstand. This is often misinterpreted, and often people will say autoimmunity is just overactivity of the immune system, and that's not true. And if you treat it as overactivity of the immune system, you're going to get it wrong, and potentially you're going to end up on wrong supplements and wrong treatments, and you're not actually going to get better, and potentially you're going to get worse. So for me, personally, I thought it was important that people have some sort of an idea on what are we dealing with at this sort of immune level, so that we can have a better understanding on how to deal with the immune system correctly and how we can bring it back into balance, because ultimately that's what it's all about. And then day 2, we're going to talk about immunomodulation and tissue restoration using food. So a bit of a more focus on foods here. So we're going to talk about making your own fermented foods. We're going to talk about bone broth and vegetable juicing and fasting and things like that. You're going to have loads of great info, lots of practical tips, lots of recipes and things like that. So that's a really great day. Day 3 will be about supplementation. So we're going to look at restoring immune tolerance using supplementation. We're going to talk about colostrum, probiotics versus nutrients that can upregulate T regulatory cells, which I'm doing. So I will explain why you want to do that, when you want to do that, and what sort of nutrients will help you, or nutrients and other strategies can help you achieve that. And also we're going to have a good session with Dr. Shiroko on what to look out for when you're buying supplements, which I get a lot of questions about. So I thought that would be useful for everybody to just have a summary of that in a session. So we're doing that. And then on day 4, we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about on day 4. We're going to talk about improving organ function and immune function using plant-based formulas. So we're talking about herbs, we're talking about essential oils, we're talking about things like fulvic acid and endocannabinoid system. So very, very interesting also. Then day 5, we've got looking at rebalancing the immune system by looking at hormonal balance, movement, and the mind. So all of those 3, and how that kind of comes into it when it comes to restoring immune system balance. Day 6 is all about energy medicine and alternative approaches. It's probably, some of it will not be what you expect, but interesting angle nonetheless, because of course, if we want optimal health, if we want to thrive at every level, we have to consider the physical, we have to consider the mental and spiritual and energetic. We have to consider all of those things, because everything affects everything else. So we've got some aspects here. We've got some stuff on Ayurveda and other energy medicine approaches. And then day 7 is just a last day where we're going to talk about different other immunomodulating strategies with people who work with people with autoimmune conditions. We're going to talk about ozone therapy. We're going to talk about infrared therapy, immunotherapy, helminthic therapy. So loads of different things that you may have not even heard of before, but these are all very good approaches that can be tried if you have an autoimmune condition and you perhaps are a little bit stuck and you want to progress a little bit further in your recovery. So there's going to be all of that for you to explore, which should be quite exciting if you're not familiar with it yet, because that's going to be a quite eye-opening thing for a lot of people. So right, so let's just pause a second. Let me just have a look at the chat box here. Right, okay. Anne from London says, I'm breaking up occasionally. I always find, even though I'm in Spain, that I always have a better connection with America than with the UK. It's really weird. I've got satellite here, so it should be reasonable. Okay, I will see what I can do about sending you a recording of this. So Akira says, I'm fascinated by and interested in using bioresonance, but personally and professionally, do you have any recommendations of which bioresonance system are most effective? I can tell you which my favorite is, and I've tried so many things over the years because I grew up in Poland, and in Poland, Eastern Europe is actually big on this stuff. So both Germany, Poland, Russia, all those places have used bioresonance for many, many years. This technology first came out in 1930s. So it's been around for a very long time. But what you need to know is that there are different, loads of different systems on the market, and not all of them are equally good. But if you have access to something, it's probably better to try that than not try it at all. But I can give you, I'm going to put down here the system that I've been so far in my on my little exploration of these things most impressed with. It's called Sensitive Imago. That's what it's called. So they have a website, you can look them up. Yes, we'll be talking about glutathione in part 2. Yes, we will be. Oh, choppy. I really don't know why that is. Anybody else is struggling with this recording? Is it breaking up? If you having difficulties hearing me, then I will. You're welcome, Makaro. So I will be probably sending this recording. Okay, so a few people are having a bit of a broken connection, which fine here, Karen says. Yes, and forever, it's okay. So actually, yeah, it seems that people in the US are probably off and on in Canada. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, audio good, video a little glitchy. Okay, so it's not as ideal as we would like it to be. Like I said, I'm on satellite here, so I usually do interviews. I'll do a lot of interviews, and usually it works fine. So I will try and record this, and I'll send it over. So if you feel you missed out on something, then you can review that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. I'll do that. I will send you this recording then. Okay, so I also said to you that I will just give you some pointers on, because I said a lot about, yes, there's a genetic influence in autoimmunity. So what? I almost say, so what? Because, why is that? Because many people, actually, including a lot of doctors, will still use genetics as an excuse, or they'll blame their lack of success in reversing autoimmunity, and they'll say, oh, it's genetics, right? It's genetics. Now, people still do that. To me, it's quite amazing because, right, I'm just looking at the, yeah, okay, so we've got in some places good, in some places The video is breaking up a bit. Okay, then, great. Thank you for letting me know, guys. So yes, genetics plays a role in the autoimmunity. Yes, it does, but so what? The reason why I'm saying that is quite simple. Collectively speaking, I've looked at a lot of research on this. There's obviously going to be research papers that are looking at specific autoimmune conditions, and there is obviously going to be a degree of variability between the different autoimmune conditions, meaning that in some autoimmune conditions, the genetic element will be a bit higher than in others. But collectively speaking, only about 15%, that's 15% of contribution to autoimmunity can be put down to genetic factors. Okay, so what that means is that, of course, we still have 85% of the contributing factors. Some of them, obviously, I've just discussed when I'm talking about those different areas. All of those things will comprise 85% of the overall success. So what I'm saying here, that when it comes to autoimmunity, epigenetics, so all those factors I'm talking about, the dietary factors, the emotional factors, the lifestyle, the environmental, the toxicity, all of that, it trumps genetics completely. I mean, that's 85% versus 15%, right? So we have a lot of control. And this is why when people apply themselves and they look at all those areas and they really, really, I'm just still looking at the box here, I'm getting distracted. So basically, there's a lot we can do. There's an awful lot we can do. So, you know, somebody's asking, how can we repair our DNA and regrow myelin? Well, obviously, if you get to the point where you have an awful lot of damage, you may not be able to fully achieve that. But I do know a lot of people who had progressive MS and were in wheelchairs, and they're no longer in wheelchairs, and they exercise regularly, and they do all of the things that they want to do. So that just goes to show, but their approach will be very much along the lines that we're discussing here. So they found the root cause, they addressed the root cause, whether it was an infection or toxicity or whatever it was, and then they achieved a level of regeneration that obviously allows them to now, enables them to live the life that they want to live. I know loads of people like that. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about neuroregeneration actually with Dr. Khan. So tune into that session. So we talk about that. And also, yes, you know, somebody's making a good point that we're getting a complete new body in 6 to 7 years. We are obviously getting a completely new system. I mean, the problem is, and that's true, that of course we get a lot of regeneration in most parts of the body. But when you get so much damage in the organ that the organ cannot perform a function anymore, for example, pancreas completely destroyed, and you can't, you know, you have no beta cells to produce your insulin, then, you know, I know that people do that with stem cell therapy. They're starting to now treat even that. So I think the future is incredibly hopeful, and even things that are right now a little bit, you know, when you have a lot of organ damage, you may not be able to fully regenerate it. You definitely can improve your situation and you can improve your symptoms. That I know for a fact. But, you know, some years to come, you never know. We may be able to restore a pancreatic function. I mean, type 1 diabetics could be recovering and things like that. So I know a lot of type 1 diabetics who, for example, don't inject insulin because they just manage the condition with diet alone. But now the stem cell therapy that is progressing means that perhaps there's hope for people even there. So there's just some amazing things. So you need to just keep your mind open and just listen to all those people who are working with this stuff, researching this stuff, and learn as much as you can about this. So I was saying that it's never really too late. That's the thing. That's another point I'm making. It's never really too late. And so it's really exciting that there's so much we can do. And the epigenetics, which really epigenetics means that it's the control above the genes. Really, really cool stuff. It's been around for a while, of course. And so let me just give you my own example here. So autoimmunity runs in my family. That's number one. So on my mother's side, we've got my grandmother had Graves' disease, my mother's sister and my cousin, so my mother's sister's daughter, they all both have Graves' disease. My mom has Hashimoto's, and of course, I had Hashimoto's at some point as well, right? So you could say I am definitely genetically disadvantaged, but that wasn't all. So what actually happened for me, I had a lot of trauma as a child because I had a trauma when I was born. My sibling died in the womb. So I spent last 3 months of pregnancy, more or less, with a baby who was dying in the womb next to me. And then I nearly died at birth because of all the toxicity associated with that. And I was quite a weak child. I was weak physically and emotionally. I actually, yes, well, there you go, Daniel. Yeah, so in Poland, I iodine deficient. Well, that wasn't even it. There was something worse actually that happened to me because I lived in Poland. And that was that well, I had all sorts of things. I was bullied at school. I was sexually assaulted as a kid. All sorts of things happened. But there was another thing that was absolutely frightful that happened to me when I was 11, and that was the Chernobyl disaster, the nuclear disaster in Chernobyl in 1986. And I can tell you that I don't know whether you ever had that feeling that you were going to die. If you ever had that feeling, then you know how awful that feeling is. And I remember, and I will never forget that day when that disaster happened. That was I was absolutely convinced that I was going to die. I mean, I was 11. I didn't really understand what had happened, how bad it was, but the aura and everybody around me was completely freaking out, and the aura was just generally of impending doom descending upon us. And so we were sitting we had math class, and the head teacher came in and interrupted the math class and basically told us to first go to the nurse's office, get some iodine, and then immediately run home as fast as possible, lock all the windows and doors, and stay indoors until, further notice type thing. And so I remember it was actually end of April, but it was a hot end of April, and we were sitting indoors for days with windows closed. And it was awful because it was just a few days of just complete fear of not knowing how bad it was, what was going to happen. So that, if you're thinking about thyroid problems, and of course having your thyroid irradiated like this, then of course that was a massive, clearly another contributing factor to me having thyroid problems later in life, right? So all of that was happening. And the reason why I'm sharing all this with you, because I had genetic stuff that wasn't working for me, but at the same time, a lot of mutations and various things like that, you name it. And then all of those other things that happened. But despite that, with all the changes that I made, I managed to recover from this. So if this was possible for me with all the crap basically that came my way in one form or another, it is possible for a lot of people without any shadow of a doubt. And so that's really the reason why I'm sharing it. So I'm just gonna pause and have a look at the comment. Yeah, I mean, you see, that's the thing. I mean, I think that everything negative that does happen in our lives is just part of living. And when we finally come to terms with it, we need to see the lessons and see the opportunities that will come out of it. I always think in that way. And so absolutely, whether it's developmental trauma or some other major trauma, lots of kids get bullied and things like that. So I'm not the only one. But the point is, when all of that, your little organism is bombarded with all of that, you need to work a little bit harder after that to come on top again. But you can come out on top again, and that's the message, really. So I tell you what helped me the most, interestingly, and I adopted the approach of the exact thing that I'm sharing with you. You need to be looking at all those different areas that I described. But the one thing that helped me more than anything personally, for me, it was dealing with all the emotional trauma. That was the biggest chunk of my puzzle. For everybody, it will be different. However, that was for me. And I stopped eating gluten. I changed my diet, but that did not make as much of an impact as I expected that it would. It made a difference, don't get me wrong. Of course, it made a difference when you stop eating gluten, but it didn't make as much of a difference. It was really dealing with the trauma that made the biggest difference to my recovery. So yeah, I'm more than happy, and I know you can see that you appreciate me sharing the story. It's absolutely, it's true story. It is what happened, and I am grateful because I am where I am because all of those things happened to me. So that's absolutely how I see it. And so what else helped me? This is obviously a case study that I'm using is me, and that's I try to always make people aware that we are all different and it's not going to be the same for you. But emotional trauma was a big factor for me. And another thing was dealing with co-infections, because as I told you, I had 18 different things going on with different pathogens, fungus, bacteria, viruses, parasites, all of these things. And so getting rid of it using bioresonance, obviously, by the way, made a massive difference to my immune function overall. And so, of course, on top of that, and I absolutely have to stress that I live a clean lifestyle. I do what I preach. I do have a clean diet and a clean lifestyle. Obviously, I have a treat every now and again because I want, that's life, and so you're going to have it. But most of the time, I am really, really good, and I do detoxification strategies. I apply them on a daily basis. So obviously, keeping the body clean does help. So, yeah, let's see what you guys are saying here. I was doing this addiction last 2 years, lost 7. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's a big, the emotional part can be so big because then the mind affects the body affects the mind. You cannot separate it. So, yeah, I can see you guys are also sharing your experiences, and it's very, very interesting to hear. And so, yeah, and sometimes things like depression and addictions can actually be driven by dysbiosis. You have to consider that. What relationship do you have with your microbiome, because that could have such a massive impact on your recovery. And so, what I wanted to finally share with you. So all of those things help me, and right now I have complete freedom in terms of I am completely free of symptoms. I don't have any antibodies. I don't. My test results are really, really great. Of course, I monitor them clearly because you don't want to take your finger off the pulse. But generally speaking, I run, I cycle, I rock climb. I am active pretty much every day. I have energy to do it. And I feel great, and I feel brilliant, and I can still do all of this mental work, and I can do all this interviews and doing what I'm doing with this events and stuff like that. And that's absolutely possible. And I tell you, 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible because I was falling apart. So So interesting what you guys saying here. So somebody says that they're told they need more salt. Well, if you deplete it in minerals, then you will struggle if you have mineral depletion, and a lot of people do have mineral depletion. So if you take good quality sea salt every day, avoid processed salt, but take good quality sea salt, you can really boost your mineral status. And I definitely say that that's a very good idea. So I wanted to finally because we've been going a while, and you've got the whole Sunday to enjoy. So some of you not, because you're in the same same part of the world than I am. But all the people in North America, you've got the whole Sunday to enjoy. So let's wrap this up. So I wanted to just share with you some things that when you do daily will make a massive difference to your recovery and healing. So if you don't believe me, honestly, just be rigid and religious with it for 30 days. And so I'll give you some things that will make a massive difference and can take as little as 10 to 15 minute time of your day. So one thing that you need to remember always is that if you have an autoimmune condition and you have symptoms, you need to do a lot of healing. I mean, healing, right? However, healing can only take place if you're in rest and digest, so parasympathetic tone. Being in fight or flight or freeze all the time, which a lot of people are every single day, all day long, is going to stop you from healing. You're not going to heal unless you have moments where the body is in rest and digest. That's when we heal. So that's why we heal in our sleep also. So if you take 10 deep breaths, which will literally take you a few minutes, and you do that multiple times a day, say 5-6 times a day, and you do that for 30 days, you're going to feel the difference for sure. And what's that? That's nothing. Now, you may say, oh, yes, yeah, I've heard this before, right? That, or 10 to 15 minutes of meditation, maybe guided meditation, listening to something on your phone or something like that. And now really kind of going in. Now, I know you know this, but do you do it? That's the point. Are you consistent with it? The word, like I said at the beginning, it's consistent. Daniel's asking me, how long did I have Hashimoto's? Well, it went undiagnosed for many years, so God only knows. I am absolutely positive that I will not get it again, because I've got the recipe and I know what works for my body. But I have to say that it probably was brewing. It was brewing for many years. I didn't even know that it was there. So I didn't really get diagnosed until late 20s, I think, something like that. So I probably I had it for a very long time. But yeah, my ultrasound is clear. I have no nodules. I have no antibodies. I have no symptoms. Everything is great, and I feel good. I don't, so I know I am on the right track with this. So it's just keeping it up, right? How long until I recovered? Once I started making all the changes, probably less than a year, actually. Yeah, probably less than a year. Yeah. But like I said, the biggest oomph that I got was from really digging deep and dealing with the trauma. So yeah. So right. So that would be one thing that you can do, but do it literally for 30 days. Just take 10-15 minutes out of your day and do this. That could be one thing that's going to be so transformative. Another thing that you can make it so just change your mindset a bit and think about, we're dealing with autoimmunity, so we're dealing with chronic inflammation, okay? So think about choosing to eat something anti-inflammatory with every meal. So whether it's going to be a nice load of vegetables, or whether it's going to be adding turmeric to your soup, or other spices that are inflammatory, or eating some fish, as John just suggesting, right? So you need to be thinking, including something anti-inflammatory in every meal, okay? So to counterbalance some of the things that clearly not going to be anti-inflammatory, because you're not going to eat 100% anti-inflammatory. It's not going to be possible. And another one is move every day. I don't know where I would be. That's another thing that I can say, but movement. I don't know where I would be I don't think for a second that I would be where I am today if I didn't move every day. I very, very rarely have a day when I'm not moving, very rarely, because it's just massive. It's immunoregulating. It regulates your hormones, and it improves your microbiome biodiversity. So it actually improves your microbiome, unless you, of course, go completely mental and overdo it and do injurious events, in which case it's not going to be so good. But I'm not talking anything epic. I'm talking about moderate sort of amount of movement that leaves you energized but not exhausted. So it's going to be different for everybody. John is asking, how long should I rest? And you're struggling with a lot of symptoms, then probably you don't need to be resting a lot. But at least if you take sort of 10 minutes here and there, that will still make a lot of difference. For example, if you're working and you're not able to just, so, not everybody is able to just rest all day long, right? If you're really struggling and you have a lot of symptoms, then having more than 10-15 minutes of meditation, have a whole hour of meditation, listen to something. If you can't meditate on your own, just get different tools to help you lower your brain activity and get into that zone, because that's one of the most healing things you can do. And then movement. So even if you have symptoms and you're not very well, you still have to move, even if it's a 10-minute of slow walking, because that's another thing that people do. People think I'm sick, so therefore I shouldn't be moving. And that's just not true. When I had ME, I actually was so bad at some point that I could only manage 2 minutes of walking on the treadmill. But I started with that and I built it up. And now I can run for an hour and be absolutely fine. So that's everything that you do very much depends on your starting point. That's why it's very difficult to advise generically. But when I'm talking about exercise, you want to be thinking, I want the exercise to energize me rather than exhaust me. So you don't want to get to the point where you're falling flat on your face at the end of it. Okay, you don't want that. You want to be energized. So that's another thing. And if you do it, again, just pick something, do it for 30 days every day, and you'll see how profound that can be. Another thing you can do is choose to do something detoxifying every day. So every day you have this thing, I have to do something that is detoxifying. It could be a sauna session. It could be an enema, coffee enema, for instance. It could be perhaps applying castor oil pack to your liver to draw some of the toxins out, or having a green juice, or whatever it may be, but something every day. And then another two things that I have is do something nurturing for yourself. So healing, autoimmunity, a lot of it will be about how self-nurturing you are. So if you're always the last one in the queue and you're always putting yourself last, you're going to struggle to heal. You're going to have to start prioritizing yourself. So it's just absolutely essential. So whether self-nurturing could be just doing something small for you that really brings you joy, and you really you just think, oh, that's so nice. I love doing that. Whatever it is, I don't care what it is. It could be reading a book for half an hour. You could be having a bubble bath. It's fine, whatever it is, as long as you feel good doing it. And you should try and put some time aside to do that every day. And again, try and do that for 30 days, see what happens. And then the last one that I have, I really wish that people thought differently about the relationship that they have, not just with themselves, because obviously that's a biggie, but the relationship they have with their microbiome. So that's the last one for me. Is like I want you to think that you want to do something nice for your microbiome every day. So it could be eating some fermented foods, or something like that. And also, to be honest, a lot of the strategies that are good for us overall are good for our microbiome. So movement, good for the microbiome. Meditation, good for the microbiome. So you can actually hit to sort of combine it and achieve two results with doing one thing, right? But I want to encourage you to think about your microbiome as your best friend, as we discussed in part 1 with Raphael Kelman, and just think, what can I do every day to make my microbiome happy? And if you make your microbiome happy, you will transform your health. You will transform your health for sure. So listen up. So hopefully this has been helpful. We've gone on for a while. I really very much appreciate that you all guys are still here. That's absolutely phenomenal. I just love it. I am sorry that I haven't kept up with all the comments that were coming in. At some point they were coming in fast and furious. So I'm sorry if I missed it. But of course we're gonna have opportunity to comment on the interviews when we're doing any opinion on drinking water? Okay, I've got that one from Karen. I don't think you should overdo it because what you're doing, if you obviously you need to drink filtered water, absolutely no tap water, no plastic water. So no bottled water, cold bottled water, plastic water, unless it's in a glass bottle, obviously. But most water is plastic because I don't touch plastic bottles and I don't touch tap water that I don't, if it's not filtered, it's no good. So investing in super high quality, I don't think that people should be drinking liters and liters and liters of water every day. There's a balance to everything. And if you drink ridiculous amounts of water every day, you're washing out your minerals. And then the mineral depletion can actually make you fatigued. So I'm not actually gonna give an amount of water that people should drink because I believe it's something that is individual. So if I'm gonna do if I'm gonna exercise in the heat, I'm gonna drink more water. But if I have a cold day, I'm not gonna drink as much water. So obviously that needs to be something that is we always sort of in tune with. But it has to be filtered water. You need to install the filter in your house. If you don't already have that, then invest in that because it needs to go through a decent filter to take out all the antibiotic residues or the heavy metal residues and whatever other toxins, pesticides, whatever other thing is in your water otherwise that nobody else is going to bother taking that out. So you need to take initiative with this, install a good quality filter. So I hope this has been helpful. And I am thanking you so much for being here and joining me. I hope you got something out of it. I am excited about this event. I know you're going to get hits out of watching those sessions. There's going to be Facebook, the opportunity to comment and to interact with other people, to ask questions, stuff like that. I'll be keeping an eye on those, obviously. But before you go, I said I'm going to have a big bonus for everybody who's attending, and you guys are here till the end. So this is going to be only for people attending this. And I have, I'm basically offering a whopping $50 off. So that's a third of the $28. Okay. So I wanted to, we've got a few minutes left. So if you have any questions, I know you missed some comments that were coming in. I am apologist for that as I was trying to kind of multitask here. But if there's anything that you perhaps want to know in terms of what sessions will be, say if you can't watch everything, maybe you want to be pointed towards the right sessions for you. I don't know, just ask away. So where is it and how do I use it, right? So if you want to use the code, you need to go to sort of a couple of emails ago. I sent you I sent you a few emails that had linked to the All Access Pass. And so so if you just click on that link, then you will be able to then go to the page and enter the code. Now, if you're struggling with that and you are interested in this offer, because this offer will go away, this is for people only here today, then if you're struggling to find it or whatever, just drop me an email and I'll direct you. So I'm going to enter my email address. So if you have difficulties finding this, email me and I will point you in the right direction. So somebody's actually neuropeptides. Actually, we were talking about that in part 1, funnily enough, neuropeptides. Any particular brand of water filter? I am in Spain here, and I'm using something that is produced by a local company, so that's not going to help you very much. I am not entirely sure what people are using in America, but what I'm using in terms of brands, but what I'm using is a 5-stage filter. So if you find the filter that's going to have the different filters, one filter will be taking out the really big particles, then the other one will be taking out heavy metals, the other one will be taking out bacteria and really small anything that could be pathogenic. And then there's going to be an osmosis filter as well. So you've got all of those different filters in the system. That's basically what I use. And so whatever company, there's loads of companies that have those sort of systems. So that's, I would say, look for that. That will be good. That will be fine if you haven't got one already. Be aware that when you have those jugs, those Brita, whatever branding, maybe in America they're called Brita, in the UK they're called Brita, but those jugs with little cartridges, that's complete rubbish, because that takes out chlorine and that's about it. That doesn't actually really, it's not a properly filtered water. All that does is actually takes out chlorine out of your water, makes it taste a little bit better. But all the other contamination is still there. So you want actually a proper filter, like I said, the 5-stage or something like that, or even more stages if you can find it. Excellent. So, okay, right, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know whether you can see this comment, but Akira is saying here, I know a lot of reputable health practitioners who recommend Berkey water filter systems in the US. So have a look at the comments. We've got a recommendation for a water filter system in the US. Okay. Yeah, activated charcoal obviously is great as well. I'll be happy with a filter that removes fluoride. And then this is what you have to look at. So actually the one I use, for example, removes 99% fluoride. You need to absolutely be sure that it does that, because of course, as we know, fluoride is too neurotoxic, and you definitely don't want to be ingesting that. Great guys, thank you very much for sharing, and I can see other people are picking up on that, so that's awesome. Is there a Facebook page? Marilyn, I have a very rocky relationship with Facebook, to be quite honest with you. I am not a fan of Facebook. I have a Facebook page. Yes, I have a Facebook page, but it's not a super active Facebook page. But if you look me up, you can find it. But I'm going to be honest with you, I am not that much of a Facebook fan. Yeah, right. So I have it. I've had it for a long time, but I don't. Yeah, I like communicating with people via live events, online events, things like that. I'm glad some of you are on my side. I've got all sorts of issues with Facebook, which I'm not going to go into. A lot of them ethical, actually. Yeah, well, a lot of, well, you will, that's the thing is that you will actually find that in some places they do add fluoride to water. And that is a really, really bad thing. So if you live in the area, I think, as I understand it, you can go on the website for your water provider, and the water provider will tell you exactly what they're taking out and what they're adding in, if anything. And you can then, perhaps based on that, perhaps I should have said that when you're getting your water filter, it's a good idea to check what's in your water first, because you can perhaps, sometimes you'll be surprised. I mean, you maybe actually just find a filter depending, so that they'll be better suited to the water you have. So, so that may be a good idea to actually check with your provider first what's in the water. They should have it on the website. If not, you can approach them for that information. And if they're adding something to the water that you do not want, then get a good filter that'll take it out. That's what we can do, unfortunately. It's crazy, but that's what we can do. So nice one, John. Yes, I rock climbing is one of the things we do here. Very living in the nice part of Spain, rural Spain, lots of opportunities for outdoorsy things, and we absolutely love it. Cycling outside, rock climbing, all of those. We don't have a water reservoir for kayaking sort of close by, but we have a national park a couple of hours away from here, and then we can do that. I was even thinking of doing some this summer. So nice. It's wonderful, John, isn't it? Because it's just it's therapy in itself when you're outside in nature exercising. So when I'm talking movement, I, as much as possible, just try and go out there and interact with your surroundings. If you live in a nice area where you can interact with nature, that's just one of the best forms of meditation and therapy that you can get, really. And so it's very true. Daniel is saying, isn't it amazing that countries that don't fluoridate the water don't have more cases of tooth decay? It's fluoride does nothing for your teeth, by the way. It really does not. And I talked about Dr. Nanale is one of the top dentists in America, biological dentist. We did that in part 1, as some of you will remember. And I can tell you that I used fluoride toothpaste for the first however many years of my life, and I had so many cavities and problems with my teeth. And for the last 20 years or however long it's been that I have been using fluoride-free toothpaste, I've barely had any problems with my teeth. So that just goes to show that it's just complete nonsense. That's not what with teeth. It's really hormones play a big role. If you have hormonal imbalances, all sorts of things like that, nutritional imbalances, things like that will play a much bigger role in overall bone health than adding fluoride to your toothpaste, for sure. Gary, no, it's not too late for you. 68 years old, you're a spring chicken. Absolutely, you only as old as you feel, for starters. But yes, absolutely, I do not believe for a second that it's too late for you. You can still make changes. I know people in their 80s and 90s who are making changes and getting a lot of benefits. So you are definitely not too late. So yeah, never too late, Gary. Exactly. And yeah, just watch as many of those interviews as you can. Ask questions. Obviously, I can't guarantee we'll answer every single one of them. If there's be aware that if you're asking a question that is sort of relating to your specific medical situation, then even legally we're not allowed to answer that. So this is about advice, pointing you in the right direction. But please be aware that if it's a specific medical question, then just none of the speakers or myself, we can't answer that, because we just not we don't know your history, we don't know the details, so it really wouldn't be appropriate to even attempt that. But there's even so, you can get a lot out of it. So yeah, 40 is definitely very, very young indeed. So awesome, that's really great. Thank you so much for sticking with me till the end, and I really enjoyed this, and I hope we get to do this again, and you join me again. I mean, obviously the event is dominating my life currently, as you can imagine, and as we're running the event is very, very intense and very, very involving. But going forward, there will be more events. I already have an event planned for September, which will be fantastic. Also, I already have half the speakers confirmed, so I know it's going to be great. And then we're going to be doing a lot more live masterclasses, webinars, things like that, because I think this is a great way to interact with you. So yeah, and thank you. I really hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate you being here massively. So tomorrow we're kicking off, and yes, please, just if you in the meantime, you've got my email address. If you have any issues, any questions, any problems, just email, just come to me straight away, and we'll always try to help. We always we haven't had any technical difficulties, but if you have anything that you may need assistance with, then you must not hesitate to come to me straight away, and we absolutely do the best to help you. So appreciation to you, much hugs to everybody as well. Thank you. Appreciating your messages here, and yeah, it's been an absolute blast. So I will finish here, because otherwise we never will finish. Yeah, great. We will see you tomorrow, or you will be seeing a lot of me for sure through this event. Clearly, let's just see what Karen's saying. I've read that. Let me just get that right. The heating bottled water will separate out the plastic particles so they can be urinated out of the body. Yeah, I'm not sure I am understanding your question, Karen, but heating plastic will make the water interact with the plastic. So essentially, the worst thing anybody can do is to drink the water that is heated up in plastic. That is terrible, because biochemically that water will interact with plastic. So if you this heat definitely makes it worse. It makes it worse. So I am really not. If I'm understanding this right, this doesn't sound right to me at all. So if you ever drink plastic water, as in water in a plastic bottle, you need it chilled, because the moment you start heating it up, or leave it in the car and it's heating up because it's sitting in the hot car, dispose of it, because it's just like drinking diluted plastic. And of course, as you know, plastics are so highly disruptive to your hormones. So it will not just screw up your thyroid, it will mess up so many things in the body. So Adrienne, thank you very much. Love your energy. Thank you, Adrienne. So yeah, Kate Joe, you're a bit late, but I'll try and post this as a recording. All right, you guys. Okay, not heating the pot. Okay, not okay. So I didn't understand that. That's the first. Sorry, but obviously, yeah, yeah. Plastic and the body generally do not mix very well. I am not sure about that either, actually, Danny. I see what you're saying now, but I am not sure about that, because I am thinking, I am thinking biochemically all the time, and I am not sure that that's how it works. Really, I can't think why it would work like that. Actually, you don't want that plastic anywhere near the body, basically. So, but if I come across anything that points me in a different direction, I'll be sure to let you know. I'll probably write a blog about it or something, and you'll find out. Right. So, okay. Right. Let's go, everybody. Have a great day or evening if you are on this side of the ocean. Otherwise, yes, have a great day, and we will be seeing you tomorrow. Okay. So thank you, and goodbye for now.